Hi there friends, welcome back. Behind me here we have a beautifully restored HX Holden Kingswood body. We have completed the job. We're done here at Reed Custom Garage. We had this car come in all bare and in primer, ready for a full straighten up, all the bodies and panels repaired with a nice beautiful inside out paint job done in antelope. So you can see it here behind me, all finished. You're about to see the full video of what we did to get it from where it was to where it is now. So if you stick with me, I'm confident you're going to really enjoy what you see. This is how it came in. Been doing a little block work on it, a couple little patch repairs here and there, just before we take the panels off. Just been making sure that the body lines are all going to line up. Couple of little dents to fix here and there, but otherwise pretty tidy. Lachlan started on the rear quarter panel here. Here you can see Lachlan blocking the body line into the arch, the rear quarter panel and through the door. So the Kingswoods have a paint body line that runs all the way from that corner right through there into the middle of the door. So we've got to draw that tape line so we can block to it on both ways, top to bottom, to get a definitive body line through there to keep it looking original. A lot of people, when they restore these, they forget about this body line and they simply just skim the panel and block it straight, and they lose that body line and therefore losing the genuine nature of the shape. Okay, so I'd like to show you where we're at with the HX. For the last couple of weeks, me and my boys, we've been focusing on just getting this car straight and all the body lines lined up and the panels gapped really nicely. So we've sprayed it in about 3 or 4 coats of all you need primer. That is like a polyester spray bog. So it gives us a lot more blocking power and shaping power. After this process, we're going to re-prime it again. So that way we can give it a secondary block and get it ready for paint, and it will just be irrefutably straight. I'm going to show you all these body lines. You can see they're just coming together perfectly. We've got this lovely gap here. Up to the plenum, the gaps there are looking even all the way through, matching into the door and the guard. And then we've even got these rolled, these like concave sections of the guard done really nicely. And same with the rear quarter panel. You can see we've had to, I'll just turn the camera around. You can see there where we've rubbed through, but we've been trying to gain that really nice concave through there. It goes from the back all the way over and through to the middle of the rear door there. So when we paint that, you're going to see that concave definitively as the natural body line that it has. And you see those lines are just matching up beautifully right through with good gaps, right down through the sill. So I'm really happy with where it's at the moment, and I feel that this is going to be just so straight and tidy. You know, a lot of people when they bog these and they shape them and get these panels nice and straight, they forget about this concave here, and you see these driving around and they look nice and straight, but they just don't have that shape. And we're trying to keep the originality of this, and I think we've achieved that really nicely. All right, so now we know that the gaps are all good, the body lines are lining up, so we've unbolted all the panels and we've put them in the booth for their next phase of high fill primer. Looking good, boys. I'm just using some 500 grade sandpaper on the orbital sander, just to do under the boot lid and the bonnet. This is where I'm going to lay first paint. I always do the underside of the boot lid and bonnet first, because I want to paint it flat. I want to have it over on a stand, nice and flat, the way it sits on a car, so that paint flows out beautifully. The paint will already be on the underside. Going to be able to get into all the little nooks and crannies with this, so I will have to get some dry softback sandpaper into all those little areas that my sander won't be able to reach, but this will just get the bulk of it at least. The softback pad that I was talking about is an 800 grade sandpaper, and it's quite soft on the fingers, and it just gets into all those little nooks and crannies that your sander can't quite get into, and around all these little holes and joins and grooves. So it's always important to get every little bit. You've got to put a key in the surface in some form for the paint to stick to. And just to get it nice and flat and smooth. The smoother the job, the better the paint's going to lay down. And the finer the scratch, the less likely to see anything through your nice champagne finish. So I like to finish with 800 as a minimum when it comes to light coloured metallics. So that's what I'm doing right here. Okay, so I'm about to put the first colour on, but before I do, I've got the underside of the bonnet to do and the boot lid over there. I have to clean the panel. You do this before you do any paint work. Every painter knows this. Wax and grease remover. It lifts and removes all contaminants on the surface, so a very important thing to do. I've got my little spray bottle here. You spray that directly to the panel and then just wipe it off. And then you blow dry it and tack rag it and then paint it. So I know what the colour is now. I'm going to get into the paint room soon and mix that up, so you'll see that shortly. So you wet it up nicely. I'm just going to do half this panel at a time. And then just with your panel wipes, just wipe it off. All right, that's just about it. All wiped off. That'll just, remaining bits of that will just evaporate. I will give it another blow dry. I haven't bothered masking off underneath. I don't mind if a little bit of dry spray gets under there, just simply because I'm still yet to give it its final wet rub on that outer surface. So I've got to check the quality and give that a final. So a little bit of dry spray is going to be okay. All right, that's all done. I'm going to take you to show you the colour now. The colour's called Antelope. Antelope metallic. It's like a champagne colour, really nice old champagne colour. That's what the boys are doing here. I split the bird around there, paint stripping the roof of a BMW, a nice old 2000 model. Check that out there. That is messy business. The reason they're paint stripping this roof isn't because they're trying to get paint off. Someone had wrapped this thing years and years ago, and the wrap has just become part of the paint. It's really challenging to get off by sanding or grinding it or even heating and peeling it off. It just wasn't working. So the paint stripper seems to be lifting it. Messy as work, but necessary. Anyway, back to the colour. So I had the colour pre-mixed. It's down here. This is my paint line that I use, ProTech. I find this a really good mid-range product. It's mid to high. It's a PPG product, and anyone who knows PPG know that they do have a fantastic product and products. So this is one of their paint lines, and this is my system over here. So I've got the base coat system, and down the bottom there I've got the solid colour system. But being 4 litres that I require, I'd rather not use all my tinters here for everyday use. I just rang the company and had it ordered, and they delivered the 4 litres that I require. So we'll pop the lid off and start mixing up the required amount to do under this boot lid and bonnet. All right, so this is what Antelope looks like. So Nice sort of champagne-y colour. Almost a little bit like that silver mink HR, only more gold in it. Not quite as subtle as silver mink. I'm not actually sure if these HXs came out in this colour, antelope, or whether this is more of an earlier model colour, but I know it is a Holden GM colour that the old girls came out in. So tell me what you think, if you know what antelope came out on, if it was the HKs or if it was the earlier, the HX, or if it was the earlier HK, HT, HG generation of car. I'm just not sure. I'm sure I'll learn that with all your feedback and comments, which I do appreciate. I like it when you comment, tell me when I'm doing things wrong, because I do believe I'm learning all the time, and the only way to learn is to listen. So I don't get it right all the time, so yeah, let me know your thoughts. Okay, so I've sprayed down the base colour and it's now time to put the clear coat on. I like to reuse my tins to save on material wastage, and a lot of the times if you've got a little bit of remnant of base coat in your tins, it doesn't hurt the finish to just mix the clear coat up in that. A little bit of remnants there doesn't make any difference to the finish, and if anything, it'll probably just give it a little bit of extra coverage having a little bit of that in the clear coat. So I'm using my old tins here, my PPS setup, and I'm using my 3M Smart Gun. So I've shown you that in one of my previous videos. I do use a few different types of guns. You've seen me with the Awada 400 and using this Smart Gun. They're my two go-tos. So I'm going to mix that clear now and lay that down. And I'll be using the ProTech 2K HP clear coat. This is a really nice clear coat. It's a mid to high range. It just has beautiful clarity and it likes to flow out really nicely. So PC 9200. I'm going to mix that straight into my base coat tin. It's a 2-to-1 mix, and I'm going to mix a full cup of this and go up to the highest 2 ratio, and then I'm going to put my hardener in along with my 10% reducer and spray that on. So this is the clear with hardener and reducer. I'm using a medium hardener, and it almost looks like the colour in there looks like a champagne, but it is just clear. When I pull the stick up, you can see it's just clear coat, and there's very little colour through that, a little bit of aluminium. It's not going to make any difference to the finish. If anything, just make it look better, and it'll still flow out and look just as shiny. I'll show you at the end. Okay, so the clear coat's down, and you can see the colour now. It's, like I said, like a champagne-y gold right there. And you can also see that the remnants of the base colour in the cup that I mixed the clear in hasn't done anything to change the gloss, the finish. Still completely shiny. There's nothing wrong with that. At least for an underside where, if you're going to lift it up, it's going to look just as good as the top side. I do like to do that. I like to make sure the undersides look really good, just as tidy. The last thing you want to see when you lift up a bonnet is a dusty, hit and miss finish, not covered. So try really hard to make sure that the inside of the vehicle is just as beautiful as the outside. So there it is. And now to move on to the top sides. Nice little piece of PVC. That looks about 50 mil, so it's a bit more rounded. I think that'll be something I can use to shaping this body line, this concave that runs through here. It runs pretty much all the way from the back of the guard right up there over an arc. So it's about the same length as a piece of my sandpaper. And I'm just going to roll it through there nice and evenly, just to try and get that nice, straight, even finish. You can see where the guide coat remains. These are my little low points that I've got to pick up. You just got to keep going until all the guide coat is gone and it's all even. You put your hand flat on the panel and run it back and forward, and that's how you can also feel any little dips and ripples. You know you've got to keep going. It's getting there. It's already quite straight. We've already done the polyester spray bog spray and block, so it's already quite straight. This is just to ensure and guarantee it's going to be spot on. So I'm now going to dry buzz this down with 400 grade on the orbital disc, so 400, and I'm going to use the soft spongy interface pad. I want the sanding to go around the curves really nicely and not create any grooves. I've already got this panel super straight, so this is now just about reducing the scratch and getting that nice finish that you can paint over. I'm now going to block the high fill primer on this rear quarter panel. This will be the last block I give it. I've got to be very careful not to block out this little hip that runs through here. So the panel comes down and then it just sort of flares out a little bit. There's this nice little hip. So it's very important that I block it correctly to make sure I don't lose that. And change up the blocks. That's all done. Feels excellent. Can't feel any issues there. It just feels completely straight. You can still feel it's got that nice little concave through there. Right through under here, around the wheel arch, all beautiful. Now I'll just move on to the next panel. Got the other side to do. And then we're pretty much just getting down to the guide wiping and 400 buzzing of the car body itself, so we're getting close. All right, I've got this panel completely dry sanded now, and before I go to the wet rub phase, I just want to make sure it's 100% straight and that there's no lows or ripples. And the way I do that is I just soak the panel down with some wax and grease remover, and as all that flows out and it leaves a nice shiny coating, you look along the side of it and you can just see if there's any little ripples or lows that you need to go back and pick up. So I'm just going to spray it up, and I'll angle the camera along it so we can all look together to see if this is completely straight. So just get it nice and wet. It's all flowing out. Looks like a clear coat. And that's when we're going to see might be a bit more challenging to see through the lens of the camera than it is in real person. But what I can see, you'll see through here, that's that concave that we were working on. You can see that along the top. Well, I can't see any ripples at all through the lower section. The body line looks pretty spot on, and you can just pick up that little concave running through there, that little hip that I've been working on. I'll just rock the camera back and forth. But I can't see any lows or ripples at this point, so I'm pretty happy with that. I don't think there's any need to keep going over that. Just dry it off and start wet rubbing. I've just blocked the sill here, and I've realised there's still a few dents there that I'm going to need to skim. So I've got my body filler here. I use a 3M Platinum, and I've got roughly about 1 part of hardener to 30 parts of platinum filler. It's going to go off quite quick in this hot summer day. So I'm just going to mix that up, and you just fold it in, picking it up and folding it back on itself until that blue hardener is all consistent and mixed through. You're finished when you can't see any trace of blue, but it's just all a nice consistency. So you're just picking it up and rolling it back on itself. It'll only take a minute, but then it'll also only take a minute or so before it goes off to the point where you can't use it. So you've got to be quick, especially on a hot day like today. So that's just about ready to put in. Now if you come down here, you'll see I've got my low points. See where I blocked it? These points are the low points. Just going to skim that across. I don't have a lot of time. This is going to start, it's starting to go off as I do this, so I've got to be quite quick. It's a bit of a hot mix, 30 parts to 1 part hardener. You can do 50 to 1 if you want it to go off slower. But I'm only doing a small area, so I don't mind it going off quite quick. Just try and keep it as neat as you can. I'm always allowing more fill in the middle where the deepest part of the dent is, and less where it's at its high point around the edges, even just shave them off. So the block work will be a lot easier. Now, I think I've got another little shallow up here. You see just there, where that primer is where it's shallow. I was unable to block it out, which means it's low. I'm just gonna skim that area. All right, so I've got my 80 grit sandpaper on my nice wide block. It's about the same width as the sill, so it'll be a good one to use. It's gonna cover that whole area. I've got a nice coarse 80 grit. It's gonna slice through it very quickly, being 80, but I will go over it with some 240. I don't like to prime over 80 grit scratches because they're very coarse. So once I've got it straight, I'll give it a skim over with 240, and then I'll mask it up for primer. I'm gonna do these two together, so they go down evenly. And there it is, nice and filled. The run my hand along and it's nice and straight, I'll just clean up my little bog edges there and smoothen them off. Skim over it with some 240, and then that's ready for primer. I'll just go ahead and do this one and this one, and that's it. So this panel's been 400 buzzed, but I've guide wiped it again, and I've got Lachlan here wet blocking it with 800. So we're blocking every phase of the sanding process on this job because I just want to guarantee it's going to be super straight. So the 800 wet block, and then we'll just go over it with the palm of our hand just to finish it off. All right, so I've got some more top coat to apply. Behind me I've got the 2 passenger doors, I've got the 2 front guards and the nose cone. So let's get this done. You might also be wondering why I've got my doors hanging upside down. Well, I wouldn't usually have them upside down. I try to have them in a manner where they're the same as sitting on the car in their normal way. However, these particular doors, where the door frames are in the top, I don't really have any holes or anywhere I can run my wire through, and my hooks will just obstruct the paint surface. So by hanging them upside down like that, I can hook them to the inside of the back of the door, and they're at least perfectly parallel. So just in case you're wondering, that's why I've got them up that way. It's just simply because I can hook them better. Okay, so I've got 3 full coats of base colour down there, and I believe I've got coverage. Now before I put a pattern coat down, my pattern coat is just it evens things out. I'm going to put that down in a sort of like a lighter fashion, but before I do so, I'm just going to give it a final tack off, just in case any dust decided to settle on that while I was doing those base coats. So then I'll give it a tack off, I'll pattern coat it, and then I might even give it another tack off prior to clear coating. I want to make sure this is as dust free as possible. Okay, so applying my pattern coat, you might notice I like my air pressure up a little bit more, upwards of about 3 bar as opposed to 2 to 2.5. Make sure my fan's nice and wide, and I'll probably bring the gun back just a little bit further, just to allow for a nice large fan. It's going to just go over that nice and evenly with a nice pattern. Just finishing it off evenly, that's what I'm going for. Just making sure that there are no gun strokes or any imperfections in the standard application. And now it's time to lay down the clear coat. I've got this sitting at about 2 bar. Tacked off the panel again, so I know that it's quite dust free. And here we go, time to see how this looks. Okay, so I've just let this flow out and tuck off for a couple of hours. So now I can walk around knowing that I'm not going to allow any extra dust to fall into the job. I'll Protect Clear with a normal reducer. And it's flowing out nicely. So you've still got that nice hip there running through the guards. We're very careful not to eliminate that. It's quite straight. We'll give it a little bit of a buff when it's all back together, just to flatten it down a little bit more. But as an off-the-gun finish that it is, you see here, you really wouldn't even need to do it, but I just like to finish all my projects with a buff, just to get that extra 5%. Yeah, it's just so straight. I spent a lot of time on this one making sure it was really straight. And the next will be the bonnet, the boot lid, and the other two doors. And then time for the body. Getting close. All right, so it's the next morning and I've got the rest of the bolt-on parts in the booth ready to paint, the bonnet, the boot lid and the two doors. I've also got a guard there that I painted yesterday. Unfortunately, when I came in this morning to check on this guard, a little like a sweat droplet must have come out of my spray suit and landed on the guard. I tried to tack rag it and blow it off, but you can still faintly see it through the paint, and you know, for me that's just not good enough. I mean, even though the untrained eye may not pick up on it, I certainly can, and that would just upset me trying to send that out the door as the quality that I'd like to produce. So I'm going to redo that guard, just going to give it a wet rub down and just give it another dust of colour and a clear coat along with these panels. I'll turn the camera around and I'll show you it, see if we can pick up the little droplet there that I'm talking about. All right, so you can just pick up on it here. So you can see the drops landed here, and as I've blow dried it, trying to blow it, it's sort of jetted up and created these little lines. And before I cleared it, I couldn't see any of that, but it just seems to have come back as it's cured. Sorry about the flickering there, these booth lights, somehow with the camera to create a strobe effect. So yeah, there it is, you can see it. And it's actually probably, on some angles you can't see it at all. It's just in certain angles it stands out like dog's balls. Oh yeah, there you go. So you can definitely see that would be seen, and it's just not good enough. So we'll redo this guard. That's okay. Issues happen sometimes. As long as you know how to fix them, that's all that matters. I'm just going to pour it straight into the PPS pot. The lids have an inbuilt strainer in them, so you don't need to strain them. If you want to strain them into that pot, that's fine, just if you want to guarantee it, but these are very, very fine strainers inbuilt into that lid, so I've never had an issue with just pouring it straight into the pot. It catches just about everything. Alright, so third coat's down and I'm pretty confident I've got coverage, but just to be sure I'm going to get my light here and I'm going to have a look over, especially in those areas where there was that little bit of rub-through primer put down. Just want to make sure that that's not going to bleed back through. So. I can't see any signs of any run-through primer there. It looks fully covered. So now I'm going to proceed with my patent coat, and then from there it'll be the clear coat. With the patent coat, I'm just going to bring my gun a little bit higher off the panel, and I'm just going to turn the air pressure up a little bit. It's going to create a wider fan and make it a little bit more even. It's time to clear coat. Now I do like to put my clear coat on a little heavier so I know it flows nicely. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to probably come a little bit closer to the panel, and I'm probably going to bring my overlap back, maybe just 10%. So instead of a 50-50 overlap, you might notice I'm doing more of a 60-40 overlap. That way it's just putting a little bit more product on the panel. So I've never really thought about my technique so much until I've really got to talk about it. It just comes second nature after many years of doing this. So it's interesting to me as to what I'm saying here and how I'm actually doing it. So yeah, watch this and we'll just see how it goes on as opposed to the base coat. After laying down my first coat, a little speck of something landed in the paint, and I'm trying to use my tweezers here to try and see if I can pick it out without doing too much damage. There you go, I got it. So the second coat of clear I'm going to put on nice and heavy. That'll drown out the tiny little, you can see there's just a tiny little pit where it was, but that'll drown it out and flow out nicely. I'd rather get that out now than clear over it, and then when I try to block that out, it'll just remain. It was a black thing, and there was no way I was going to get that out if I cleared over that again. So I had to come out now. Down nice and even. You can see very dust free from taking those steps, just making that an absolute rule that you follow. You can get pretty dust free jobs. Now there's probably a little tiny micro speck here or there, but nothing that a quick buff over is not going to remove. And you can see the area where I plucked that bit of crap out that fell in the paint after that first coat of clear. That's been cleared over and it's pretty much flowed out to nothing. So always a good idea if you can pluck a bit out before your final coat of clear without doing any further damage to do that. And the boot lid, very nice. So, and the doors, beautiful, so straight. Yeah, it's all about the prep work, people. If you don't spend the time getting these panels blocked straight, gapped, getting the panels prepped for paint, you're never going to get a great job. So laying paint is only one very small part of the profession. Right, I'm super happy, guys. I got the body behind me and it is ready to paint. So we finally have it all straight, all cleaned up, ready for paint. You've seen all the parts get done. I just can't wait to have this done and start bolting parts back on because it is just going to look mint. So let's get it done. my God, it is so hot. I must have chose the hottest night of summer to do this. It's about 9:30 at night and I reckon it's 40 degrees in here. I was sweating my ring off. Can't believe it. I didn't get a single drop of sweat in the job. It's super spotless. I was just, feel like I'm gonna pass out. But I'm stoked because it's done. Paint is on and it looks mint. It's only going to flow out now overnight. I'll come in the morning and we'll do a walk around. Okay, so it's the next morning. I have completely cooled down, thank God. I didn't keel over, which is good, and here it is behind me. All finished and dried and ready to unmask. So I'll flip the bird around and we'll have a look at it. I think I really nailed it with getting it straight and those body lines. Just looks mint. So you can still see that hip there. Bugger all dust. All right, a couple of bits. Like I said, I rarely ever do a job where I don't get a little bit of dust, but just such a lovely, even, glassy finish. Those sills, you might have seen in a previous video, I did a little dent repair segment, and you can see now that sill is just spot on. Alright, so this is the best part. Now we get to bolt all the panels back on and gap and align them, and which we've already done, a pre-paint job, and we straightened it all up and got all the gaps and lines looking spot on, which is why I painted all the panels off the car. I made sure that was all correct first, but I do hope that they do go back on just as good, if not even better, so let's get going. The joys of fitting up panels. A couple of little dust nibs here, a bit of dust in it. Good. Alright, so today's the day we're starting to fit this up. Got some parts here, doors, and some are already being put back on. Check this out. We've got 2 doors and a 3rd door going on. It's looking good. Hasn't been buffed yet. It'll come up even better with a buff, but it looks mint straight off the gun. Just run a buff over it just to flatten it down a little bit more, get a little bit more clarity out of it, but that is looking spot on. The boys working hard away at the R&R. And Sean and Graham from S&G Mechanical and Glass, doing a good job. Doing most of my fit ups lately. Very happy with it. I almost forgot, I had to throw the guards back in here because I forgot to blacken the insides of them. This is all seen here. All that is seen on the car when you open the engine bay. And yeah, it just would look pretty ugly if you open it up and it's not black. So got them back in here, gonna 2K satin black these. To match the engine bay. So I've got them all masked up there at the back so I don't get any overspray on the nice paint job, and then the boys are going to fit them on. They're out there fitting the car up as we speak, so rushing to get this done so that they can keep moving on the job. This is what I'm using on the inside of the guards. It's Protec Satin Black 2K, so it's 2 parts to 1, maybe about 5 to 10% reducer, but that'll match what's currently in the engine bay. Right, all done. Put a nice couple of heavier coats on the part that you see. And just in here, I just put a coat, just it's light, but you don't see any of this. It's on the inside, but it's good just to have a coat on there. Just a bit of extra paint, gives it a bit of extra protection. And just in case you get a peek through there at some point, but it's on nice and heavy there. And you can already see it starting to flash off. It's like going satin. as we speak. So that'll tie in nicely with the inner wheel guards and the rest of the engine bay.
A little bit of a harder hit.
All right, so the HX has been buffed and I'm just doing some final cleanup work. When the customer brought it to me, he'd already had the underbody completely done. He had it lovely, blackened and all finished, all the assembly there. And through the whole process of all the poly filler, primer and the high build primer right through to the paint job, obviously you get a little bit of overspray underneath. I've tried to keep it as clean as I can, but at some point you are just going to have to surrender to the fact that some will get under there. It gets everywhere, I guess, just like water. It still looks really nice, probably from the camera there, but I'll flip it around. I'll show you what I mean. Just here behind the sills, I've got some primer and body colour there, right through here. And on the other side, quite heavily coated there on that chassis rail. So I'm going to fix all that. I'm going to mask off all of this, all the nice painted body, and I'm going to re-blacken all that. Just so it goes out the same way it came in, the underbody. I owe it to the customer to make sure that that's something he doesn't have to fix. So you can see it there. Engine bay is quite nice. I've actually been going over all the underside of the front assembly with a overspray removing pad, and because it was very light, I was able to actually remove it. So I don't have to do any extra paint work in this area, just the sides and probably at the rear, just near the diff. Yeah, just under the boot pan here. You can see it's just a little bit hazy. So we'll get that done now, and then that's pretty much it. It's just going to be a good final polish and wax, and we'll do the big reveal. Just needs a little light coat. Some satin black. Not enough to blast overspray everywhere, but just cover the area you want to cover. And the wheel arches. All right, there we have it. All nice and black again. just the way it should be. All right, now let's get it off the hoist and give it a good wash, wax, and we'll do the walk around. Thank you for sticking with me up till now. Now we all get to see the final result. I'm going to walk around this car and give you a nice close-up visual of how well this car came up. I want to thank you for your support and watching it up to this point, and I thank you for subscribing to me and liking and sharing. So big thanks for that. It really goes a long way and helps a lot. So I'm going to flip the camera around and we'll do a walk around and really get a good idea of how this car looks. I'll start from the front. As you can see, we've got the really nice profile running through the guards, that hip there. Took a little bit of time to get all right, especially the rear quarters. That little hip through there was pretty much non-existent, so we've done a good job to get that profile back. And just a beautiful gloss finish. We did all the glass here. And I'll just show you the engine bay. And a nice satin finish. See inside the doors and all the jams, just as beautiful as the outside. New bolt kit, new rubber kit, all installed. And a new hood lining. Hood lining not by us, by a gentleman known to the owner of the car. Came out and did it here at our shop. Did a fantastic job. Well, we've done all we're going to do here on this HX Kingswood, and it's time for it to go home. If you really enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate you commenting and having a chat about it, and feel free to ask me some questions. My phone number will come up on the screen if you want to have any inquiries on your own projects. I'd be happy to help. So until the next one pops up, it's bye for now. Thank you again for watching.